All right, so I never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these, but here I am. My name's James Morrison, and a year ago, my life blew up in my face. Not in a slow, creeping way. No, it was like a grenade went off, and I was the idiot standing right on top of it. I was married to Rebecca for 8 years. I thought we were happy. I mean, sure, we had our ups and downs, but nothing that screamed, "Hey, your wife is about to leave you for some rich jerk." Turns out I was wrong. Very wrong. Rebecca had been cheating on me with a guy named Richard Sterling. Yeah, the name sounds like he came straight out of some billionaire romance novel, but trust me, he wasn't charming. He was just an arrogant real estate mogul with more money than morals. And apparently, that was enough for Rebecca. I found out the way most guys do, by accident. I had a gut feeling something was off for a while. She was dressing nicer, smiling at her phone too much, and acting all distant. So one day, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her phone while she was in the shower. And there it was. Messages, pictures, plans to meet up. My hands were shaking, but I stayed quiet. I needed time to think. I wanted to scream, to flip the table, to confront her right then and there. But instead, I played dumb. And that was the best decision I ever made. A week later, she dropped a bomb. "James, I think we should get a divorce." She didn't even seem sad about it. In fact, she looked relieved. And then she laughed. Actually laughed when she told me Richard was buying our house. The house I worked my butt off to afford. "You'll land on your feet, James," she said, barely holding in a smirk. "I mean, you're a smart guy. You'll figure something out." That was it. That was the moment something snapped inside me. Rebecca thought she had won. She thought she had stripped me of everything. My marriage, my home, my dignity. But what she didn't know was that I wasn't just going to take it. No, I was going to make sure she regretted every single thing she did. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. After Rebecca dropped a divorce bomb on me, I did something she didn't expect. I nodded. No anger, no begging, no dramatic confrontation. Just a simple, calm, "All right." She looked disappointed, like she wanted me to break down, to argue, to fight for her. Maybe she wanted to feel more important, like she was leaving behind some tragic love story instead of just betraying her husband for a richer man. But I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. "Wait, that's it," she asked, blinking. "What else is there to say?" I shrugged, forcing a small, tired smile. "If you're sure about this, then I won't fight it." And just like that, I saw it. The flicker of doubt in her eyes. It was quick, barely noticeable, but it was there. Because people like Rebecca, they love control. They love feeling like they're the center of your world. The second you take that power away, they start to panic, even if they don't realize it yet. But I wasn't just planning to walk away. No, I had a different game in mind. While she was busy gushing about her new life with Richard Sterling, I was working behind the scenes. Step 1, gather everything. Rebecca thought she had cleaned up well, but she underestimated me. She used our joint account to pay for hotel stays. Noted. She took weekend work trips that lined up perfectly with Richard's. Save those receipts. She sent texts bragging to her friends about how she was finally getting the life she deserved. Screenshotted. I played the part of the defeated, soon-to-be ex-husband perfectly. I let her feel comfortable. She was so busy parading around, acting like she had won, that she didn't see me preparing my next move. Then came the real fun. One evening, I casually asked, "Hey, since we're being civil about this, do you mind if I keep handling our joint finances until the divorce is finalized? Just to make sure all the bills are covered." She barely looked up from her phone. Yeah, whatever." I had just been handed full access to everything. Now, I wasn't out to steal or do anything illegal. No, I had something better in mind. I started watching, tracking where money was going, seeing just how deep she was entangled with Richard. And let me tell you, I found more than I expected. Because, as it turns out, Richard Sterling wasn't just a real estate mogul. He was something else entirely. And Rebecca? She had no idea what kind of mess she had just walked into. So here's the thing about rich guys like Richard Sterling. They think they're untouchable. When you got millions in the bank and people kissing your feet, you start thinking you can do whatever you want. And most of the time, you can, unless someone is really paying attention. I started noticing weird transactions in our joint account, payments to shady-looking companies, large cash withdrawals Rebecca never mentioned, and the best one, wire transfers from Sterling Enterprises straight into her personal account. Not ours, hers. I don't know if Rebecca was too dumb or too cocky, but she was literally funneling money from a man under federal investigation into our shared finances. That's when I knew Richard Sterling wasn't just some sleazy real estate mogul. He was a criminal. I dug deeper. Turns out, Sterling Enterprises had a history of money laundering, fraud, and possibly even tax evasion. Nothing proven yet, but I could tell the feds were circling. The guy was practically waving a giant, "Come investigate me" sign. And my dear wife, she had just made herself part of the mess. Now, a smarter woman might have realized something was off. But Rebecca, she was too busy living the high life. Shopping sprees, fancy dinners, spa weekends. She actually had the nerve to brag to me about her new, stress-free life. It just feels so good to finally be with a man who knows how to take care of me, she smirked one night while packing up her designer bags. No offense, James, but I should have done this years ago. I just smiled. Yeah, maybe you should have. Because while she was out there playing trophy wife, I was quietly building my case. Bank statements, emails, receipts, everything. And the best part? Since we were still legally married, a lot of those transactions were still tied to me. Meaning if things went south, guess who could claim ignorance while painting Rebecca as the mastermind? Yeah, me. All I needed was the right moment. The perfect time to pull the rug out from under her. And lucky for me, that moment was coming a lot sooner than she thought. Rebecca was so deep in her little fantasy world that she had no clue I was about to flip everything upside down. By now, I had a mountain of evidence. Bank transactions, wire transfers, even emails between her and Richard talking about reallocating funds and off-the-books deals. It was bad. Like, call your lawyer and start praying bad. But I needed to be careful. If I made a wrong move, she'd catch on, and I needed her to walk right into the trap. So I played my role. Hey, Rebecca, could you help me with some of the divorce paperwork? I asked one evening, keeping my tone light. She sighed dramatically, barely looking up from her phone. Ugh, James, can't the lawyers handle that? I'm just so busy with everything right now. Busy spending dirty money. More like it. Oh, it's just a small thing, I said casually. You just need to sign off on some joint account details before we separate finances. She rolled her eyes but finally agreed, grabbing the pen. That's when I slid the key document under the others, a paper stating that she had sole control over the financial transactions in our marriage during the last 6 months. She didn't even read it, just signed and handed it back. Hook, line, sinker. That paper? It meant that when the IRS and federal investigators came knocking, guess who was legally responsible for all those shady transactions? Not me. Now, I just needed the right way to set the fire. And as if the universe was on my side, the perfect opportunity landed in my lap. One afternoon, I got a call from an old buddy who worked in financial auditing. He mentioned casually that Sterling Enterprises was already under investigation and that the feds were looking for someone to flip. I almost laughed. They didn't need to look for someone. I had their perfect witness right here. The next day, I made my move. I gathered every piece of evidence, every shady transaction, every email, and I walked straight into the local FBI office. Hi, I said, setting down the files on their desk. I have some information about Richard Sterling's financial crimes and his newest accomplice, my soon-to-be ex-wife. The agent looked up, curious. And why are you bringing this to us? I smiled, because I believe in doing the right thing. And just like that, the real show was about to begin. After handing over the documents to the FBI, I expected things to move slowly, like months of investigation, wiretaps, and all that legal red tape. Nope. Turns out, the feds had already been circling Richard Sterling like vultures. They just needed proof. And thanks to Rebecca's stupidity, I handed them everything on a silver platter. The best part? I didn't have to wait long for the fireworks. About 2 weeks after my little visit to the FBI, I got a text from Rebecca. Rebecca, hey, can you meet for coffee? Now, we hadn't exactly been on friendly terms, so this was weird. But I agreed, curious to see what nonsense she was about to spill. I met her at some fancy cafe, the type she never could afford before shacking up with Sterling. She looked different, nervous, jumpy. James, she started, stirring her overpriced latte like she was trying to dissolve her guilt in it. I know things have been tense between us, but I just wanted to check in. I just sipped my coffee and waited, because I knew this wasn't about me. Sure enough, she leaned in and lowered her voice. I think something's wrong with Richard's business. I almost choked on my drink. Oh, honey, you have no idea. What do you mean? I asked, pretending to be clueless. He's acting weird, always on the phone. He's been meeting with his lawyers a lot. She bit her lip. James, you don't think something illegal is going on, do you? I had to physically stop myself from laughing. I shrugged. I don't know, Rebecca. You probably know better than me. You've been handling all the money lately. She stiffened. That's when I knew she was starting to realize something was off. But it was too late. I played dumb a little longer, let her squirm, let her question herself. Then I wrapped up the conversation, told her I had to go, and walked out with the biggest grin on my face. Because while she was just now panicking, the feds were already tightening the noose. And the very next morning, Rebecca found out just how badly she screwed up. At 6 a.m. sharp, federal agents raided Richard Sterling's office. And at 6:15 a.m., they showed up at Rebecca's door. Rebecca always loved being the center of attention, just not like this. At 6:15 a.m., she was probably still in bed, dreaming about her next shopping spree, when she woke up to loud banging on her front door. Not a polite knock. A full-blown federal raid. I can only imagine the look on her face when she opened it to find FBI agents standing there, badges out, serious as hell. Rebecca Morrison, one of them asked. She must have been confused at first, maybe even thought it was a mistake. But then, as they pushed past her and started searching the house, reality probably hit her like a truck. Phones were confiscated, computers taken, files and documents collected. She wasn't just the wife of a shady businessman. She was part of the operation. At least, that's what the evidence suggested. And guess who they had signed documents proving was responsible for handling financial transactions? That's right, Rebecca Morrison. Meanwhile, I was at home, drinking coffee, watching the news. And there it was, Sterling Enterprises under federal investigation for fraud and money laundering. I could barely hold in my smile. But the best part? About an hour later, my phone rang. It was a number I hadn't seen in a while. Rebecca. I let it ring twice before answering. Hey, Rebecca, what's up? Her voice was shaking. James, I don't know what's happening. The FBI is here. They're taking everything. They said something about financial fraud and money laundering, and I sat back, completely relaxed. Wow, that sounds serious. She paused. I think, at that moment, she realized something. You knew, she whispered. Didn't you? I didn't say anything. Just let the silence stretch. James, her voice turned desperate. You have to help me. You know I didn't do anything. I didn't even know what Richard was involved in. You have to tell them. I cut her off. Rebecca, you signed every document, every transaction, every financial report. Your name is all over it. Her breathing got ragged. But you were the one handling the finances before. You could tell them. Oh, I already talked to them, I said, keeping my voice light. Told them everything I knew. Even gave them evidence. You know, doing my civic duty. Dead. Silence. Then she lost it. You did this, she shrieked. You set me up. Set you up? I laughed. Rebecca, I didn't make you cheat. I didn't make you steal. I didn't make you sign illegal documents without reading them. You did that all on your own. Her voice broke. James, please. You don't understand. They're They're talking about serious jail time. I smirked. Yeah, I know. And then I hung up. Let her sit with that. Let her feel the fear. Because this was just the beginning of her downfall. I wish I could have seen it happen in person. Rebecca had spent years looking down on me, laughing in my face as she flaunted her new life. But now she wasn't sipping champagne in some penthouse. She was in handcuffs, being let out of her fancy new house in front of all her rich neighbors. I didn't have to be there to imagine it. I knew exactly how it went down. The agents must have given her the usual spiel. Rebecca Morrison, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and money laundering. And I bet she tried to play innocent. Wait, there's been a mistake. I didn't do anything. But it wouldn't matter. The feds had everything they needed: bank statements, wire transfers, contracts with her signature. Rebecca wasn't just involved. She was the one holding the bag. And Richard Sterling, the man she left me for, nowhere to be found. The second the raid started, that coward disappeared. Private jet? Gone. Offshore accounts? Drained. He didn't love Rebecca. She was just another useful idiot in his scam. And when things got hot, he cut her loose without a second thought. The woman who laughed at me during our divorce was now crying in the back of a federal car. But here's where it gets even better. A few hours after her arrest, I got another call. Her lawyer. Mr. Morrison, he said, all formal and serious. Rebecca has been arrested under federal charges. She insists she was unaware of any criminal activity and is hoping you can provide a statement on her behalf. I almost choked on my coffee. A statement. I repeated. Yes, he continued. Anything that could show she was not fully aware of what she was signing, or that she was misled by Mr. Sterling. I smirked. Oh, you mean like how she told me she was finally with a real man who could take care of her? Or how she bragged about how much better her life was without me? The lawyer cleared his throat. Mr. Morrison, she is facing serious prison time. If you... I cut him off. And what exactly did Rebecca say when she was leaving me? Oh, right. You'll land on your feet, James. You're smart. You'll figure something out. Silence. Then I finished, slow and clear. Well, I did. And I think Rebecca should do the same. And then I hung up. Rebecca wanted to throw me away like I was nothing. Now, she could rot in prison. Rebecca's fall from grace wasn't just fast. It was brutal. Her arrest made headlines. Wife of fugitive real estate mogul arrested for fraud and money laundering. Her picture was everywhere. Makeup smeared, hair a mess, looking nothing like the glamorous woman who once smirked at me across the divorce table. And Richard Sterling? Still missing. Probably sipping a cocktail on some private island, while Rebecca sat in a jail cell, panicking. Now, here's the thing. Most white-collar criminals avoid long prison sentences if they are good lawyers. But Rebecca? She was screwed. Why? Because she had no leverage. See, the feds wanted Richard. They didn't care about Rebecca. She was just a pawn. If she had any valuable information, she might have cut a deal. But Richard had played her like a fool. He kept her just close enough to commit crimes, but not close enough to know anything useful. And guess who wasn't about to save her? Me. Rebecca had one chance, to plead guilty and take a shorter sentence. But her pride? It wouldn't let her. She went to trial, thinking she could win. Bad move. I didn't attend the whole trial, but I made sure to be there on the day I testified. When I walked in, Rebecca's eyes met mine. And for the first time, she didn't look smug. She looked scared. I took the stand, calm as ever. The prosecutor asked about our finances, her spending habits, and the documents she signed. I answered everything clearly, truthfully. Then, Rebecca's lawyer tried to twist it. Mr. Morrison, he said, stepping closer, isn't it true that, as Rebecca's husband, you handled all financial matters for years? I nodded. That's right. So, he continued, wouldn't it be fair to say she simply trusted you? That she may have signed things without fully understanding them, just like she did with Mr. Sterling? I pretended to think for a moment, then smiled. Well, let me put it this way, I said, turning slightly toward Rebecca. If she really trusted me, she wouldn't have cheated on me and left me for Richard Sterling. The courtroom went silent. Rebecca's face drained of color. The prosecutor smirked. No further questions. I stepped down, walked past her without a second glance, and left the courtroom. And just like that, Rebecca knew she wasn't getting out of this. Rebecca must have truly believed she'd walk away from this. Maybe she thought she could play the poor, clueless wife act. Maybe she thought Richard would swoop in last minute and save her. Maybe she thought the jury would pity her. But reality hit her like a freight train. After 3 weeks of testimony, the jury only needed 5 hours to decide. Guilty on all counts. The judge didn't hold back. Mrs. Morrison, he said, your blatant disregard for financial laws, your willingness to engage in fraudulent activity, and your attempts to feign ignorance show a complete lack of remorse. Then came the hammer. 15 years in federal prison. I swear in that moment, I saw the exact second Rebecca's world shattered. Her hands shook. Her mouth opened like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. She wasn't smirking anymore. She looked around, probably expecting anyone, to help her. But who was left? Her friends? Gone. Her new rich life? Destroyed. Richard Sterling? Still missing. And me? I just sat in the back of the courtroom, arms crossed, watching her life fall apart. As they led her away in handcuffs, she finally looked at me, not with anger, not with hatred, with pure, desperate panic. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just gave her a small nod, a nod that said, you did this to yourself. And then I walked out because Rebecca Morrison, she was no longer my problem. After the trial, I thought that was it. Rebecca was gone. Case closed. Time to move on. And honestly, life got better. I got my finances in order. Bought myself a new place, one that Rebecca never set foot in. Found a job that actually made me happy. Started dating again, slowly, carefully, on my own terms. For the first time in years, I felt free. But then, about 6 months after her sentencing, I got a letter. From prison. From Rebecca. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. I figured it'd be one of two things. Either a bitter, angry rant, blaming me for everything, or a pathetic, last-ditch attempt to get me to feel sorry for her. Turns out, it was both. She wrote about how miserable she was, how prison was unfair, how she was betrayed by everyone she trusted, Richard, her lawyers, even the system. Then came the part about me. James, I know you set me up. You did this. I don't know how, but I know you did. I used to think you were weak, but now I see you're the cruelest man I've ever known. Cruelest. That actually made me laugh. Because I didn't set her up. She did every single thing to herself. All I did was let her walk into the fire she built. She ended the letter with some nonsense about how she hopes I never find happiness, because I don't deserve it. I folded the letter, tossed in the trash, and went about my day, because the truth is, I already found happiness. And Rebecca, she found exactly what she deserved.